There.
Here we are. Hi, everyone. Hope you enjoyed our opening song. Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Wow. Well, beautiful. Welcome. Marina and I are here today, and I think this is going to be the first of 4 movies that are undoing the belief in the ego, which means undoing the belief in linear time. And linear time is the projection of the problem, and the holy instant, the present moment, is the answer, is the solution, is the relief that the Holy Spirit's provided. So it's exciting. We have a very exciting movie that Marina was hearing. You want to share a little bit about how that came?
Yes, it was actually a very powerful moment and a very deep day for me. It was Sunday actually, and on Sunday it was the day of the resurrection, and I had a very deep experience. Oh, my heart is beating. Yeah, I had a very deep experience because David, Lisa, and Urpi were doing a church service. And during that church service, I could hear David speak, but behind the words of what was being spoken, I could feel Jesus. I could feel his presence. And as David was speaking, it was not just words that I was hearing, but there were words that I feel like I was accepting for myself in my heart and my mind. And as I was listening these words and accepting them, I felt like I was seeing through the eyes of those thoughts, and I could see how everything was one. There was no separation in between what I was seeing, hearing, feeling, and seeing beyond what the images were showing me. I could see seemingly that we were in a worship service, but behind of what I was perceiving with my 5 senses, I was feeling I was one in the mind of Christ, and I was thinking his thoughts and seeing through his eyes and feeling so thankful, and I could feel the presence of Jesus Christ. And in that experience, I saw myself crying and crying and crying of thankfulness. My heart was overjoyed in gratitude and thankfulness for that moment. And I remember in that moment, at one point, like I was just thanking the moment and thanking what seemed to be David for speaking, not just speaking the words, but sharing the presence of Christ, of Jesus Christ, and the presence that we all are. And in that moment, Eric was singing, "I am the way, the truth, the life," and I was swept in this experience, and I saw Jesus so clearly with such strength and clarity, and his eyes were so focused. "You and I are the same one. I love you. You are love." And I started weeping even more. And then I was like, "What's it like?" And there's like this doubt that came, like, "What's happening?" And then Eric looks at me in the eyes again, and it was not Eric, it was Jesus looking at me again and said, "Believe." That's what the word said, but believe that this is true. This is true. This is the truth of who you are. And as the song finished, I was in my mind saying, "Stay, stay, stay with me." And Jesus is like, "I am with you. I am always with you." And I said, "I just want to stay in this experience with you." And I could feel all this love that seemingly was coming from David. Like, I feel like we were joined in prayer or joined in the love that we are. But I felt it was coming this way into my heart, and I was just, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." And then that experience finished, and David started speaking about the the movie workshops, and he said, "Oh, Marina, Lisa said that you're in an experience. Maybe you want to do the movie workshops, or maybe you want a collaborator." And in that, would you feel that? And in that moment, I closed my eyes, and the words just came through my mouth. "Oh, I would love to do it with you." And then I felt Jesus smiling in my heart. It was this is just an immediate answer to your prayer. I'm with you. I'm always with you. I'm always gonna be with you. And then that night, I was just praying about the day and praying about the movie workshop. And I was feeling the presence of Jesus so strong in my mind, and I could feel him say, "I stand at the end of time, and you stand at the end of time with me. You're just reviewing mentally what has already gone by, but you can find me in every moment that you choose to align your mind with mine. And you can make that choice in every moment, and you can see all of the images that are the past through the eyes of Christ, and you can make this choice right now and forever. You are with me forever." And I was just, in this experience of this love and union and connection, and all of these different movies were coming to my mind. And then when I thought Needle in a Time Stack, which is the movie that we're gonna watch today, I thought, oh my God, that's the perfect movie. That is what salvation is about, finding the thought of salvation in what seems to be a pool of time, images, and thoughts. There are so many ego thoughts in the mind, and the whole purpose of those images is to find one thought, and it's the thought of salvation. The ego has said that salvation is found in the images of time, and Jesus is saying salvation can be found only in your mind. Salvation is a thought in your mind. Find it, find that needle, find that thought of salvation. And that is even a few days before that I was in a conversation with Jason, and Jason said to me, I was in an experience where I had felt a very deep experience, but then all the ego came with, I was having emotions, and I was kind of lost and confused. And Jason said to me, what is real? What is real? And that question just stayed so deeply in my mind. I felt it was the Spirit telling me, find in your mind what's real. Find the thought of salvation in your mind. That is the only thing that's real. And put it out front, with full determination. Don't let any temptation, any thought of the world distract you, any thought of the images distract you. This is where you will find the love that you are seeking for, in the purpose in your mind. And then Jesus took me deeper into the experience of what the movie is going to show us. And it was the thought of where is love, because there is an experience of so much love. There's so much love, but the ego tries to attach the images to the love, and that is what I could see on Sunday. There was such a deep experience of love, of unity, but that comes through putting out front the purpose of truth in the mind and following his guidance. That's where it comes from. But then the ego would say, oh, this special place, this special person, go to the past, relive the past, reenact the past. And then Jesus is reminding us over and over and over again, and it seems like the time and space reconfigures to show us the lesson that love is content and is not form of any kind. And if there is an association that comes in, from where we think the love is in, then the Spirit will show us where we're clinging to, where we're attaching to, so that we can release that and come to where the true love is. And I remember a day had gone by, just one day. He answers prayers very, very quickly. I was just praying I was just having Jesus in my mind, and I was just praying. And then what happened was a mighty companion said, "Would you like to join? I don't know if you have any specifics." And I was like, "I'm not sure if I have any specifics, but the feeling in my heart is I would love to feel joined in purpose. And I don't know what the specifics are, but this is the prayer in my heart." And I remember I sat in front of her, and in that moment, like I was, she asked me like, "Yeah, is there any updates?" And I was speaking the words of what the updates were, but I was like, "That's not it." Like it was like, "Not it, not it." It's like the needle in a time stack. Not that thought, not that thought. And I was like, "Wait, I feel like I'm getting lost in these thoughts. I just really need to find what I want to say." And in that moment, I could feel all this love coming to my mind. I actually said what I wanted to say. I don't know if I'm going to go in a tangent if I say it, but yeah, I said, maybe I explain it later, but I said something. Okay, maybe I'll go into it. Because what I said is like, I just got my period.
Oh boy, you went from updates to I got my period. Okay. That's a time shift.
There's a lot of context behind it.
Maybe you leave the bloody parts out.
Maybe we don't need to go into much details.
Isa's sleeping behind us.
But there was so much behind that thought. I felt like all this, because there was so much love. Like I felt so much love. I felt all this love coming as if it was coming from her, like from her and through her and into my heart. We were in one mind, and I had the same exact experience. It was the mind experience. Everything is mine, and we're just experiencing our thoughts. We are one mind experiencing thoughts. Nothing is really out there. It's all images, and the images are thoughts. And I could feel that in that moment. And behind the veil of thoughts and images, there was the Christ. It was me, and there was union. And again, I started crying and crying and crying, and a song of gratitude, of thankfulness. And then when that experience finished, like Jesus is like, see, I'm showing you. The love is in the purpose. Love is content and is not form of any kind. Just by you following guidance, that is what opens you up to the experience. But it doesn't come from a special person or a person place. It just comes from the desire and prayer of your heart. And that is what this movie is going to show us. It's going to show us so much. This movie is gonna take us into a mind experience. This is what it's gonna be like, and it's gonna undo all of the beliefs of linear time, all of the beliefs that the ego says like holds this world to. It's gonna show us that time is not linear. It's gonna show us that we cannot change the past. It's going to show us that there is no choice or alternatives in the world. It's going to show us that love is not special. It's going to show us, love is content and it's universal and it's agape love and it's in the present moment. So, and that's also where the joy is. It's going to show us that you cannot find happiness in the world or choosing among images in the world. Joy is a choice that you make right now. Don't be content for future happiness, for it is not your just reward. For you have cause for freedom now. And that is what this movie is going to do for us, because we're going to follow the journey of Nick, and Nick is going to play out all of the ego tricks, all of the ego temptations. He's going to do it all for us. And if we can see the lesson behind every seeming choice that he makes in his mind, we can be free right now. We don't have to act it out, and we don't have to wait in time, and we don't have to delay. We can really learn the lesson right now.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Well, some of you know the name Needle in a Time Stack. Mitha, do you remember Needle in a Haystack? Needle in a haystack, that was our phrase growing up. Needle in a time stack is even Jesus taking it much deeper, like Marina was saying, into the mind, not just as finding something that seems to be very hidden. And it can seem that way, but Jesus is saying it's not really hidden. If you'll follow me, if you'll let me show you, in an instant I can show you how free it is. And some of you, how many of you have enjoyed our Movie Watcher's Guide with all of the time movies? We've had time travel movies, we've had time jump movies, we've had all kinds of things. In fact, Jesus was telling me today, in the course came from 1965 to 1972, so back in those terms, basically Jesus was telling us about he said, in the ultimate sense, reincarnation is impossible. There is no past or future, and the idea of birth into a body has no meaning either once or many times. But he's also adding now, decades later, reincarnation or time travel or time jumping is impossible. That even now we're starting to get more into quantum physics, and people talk about multiple timelines, but even that can be a big tangent and a distraction, because even if it's not time occurring in a linear way, which we once believed in, then we start to get into quantum and the multiverse, everything, everywhere, all at once, the great movie with Jamie Curtis. But now we're starting to realize that we're not to be distracted in different timelines, or in this movie it's called time jaunting, which is kind of their version for time travel. But there are these time shifts that seem to be effects that are happening to the people of Earth and the people in the movie. But what Jesus is telling us is, no, Jesus is performing miracles through our mind, and he's arranging time and space. And these shifts that we're seeing, these little nuances that seem to be happening on the timeline, are actually in our mind. And it's just Jesus rearranging time and space to help us come to the holy instant. It's not really that we have any reason to be afraid of these time shifts. This movie takes place, it says, in the near future, so it's all kind of high-tech in some ways, but not too much different than the technologies we have today, but these time shifts kind of come over where everything starts to waver, and it makes it look like it's a dream, because it's kind of wavy and everything. And the Earth hasn't been experiencing too many. I think those of us on the spiritual journey, we have these kind of experiences, but it's not like the masses are all doing at work and walking down the street and so on and so forth. So this movie is just such a great tool at starting to see that as the songs played at the beginning by Crosby, Stills and Nash, love the one you're with, love the situation that you perceive, love everything about the situation that you perceive, because ultimately it's holistic, and the mind is holistic, and we can't really escape from one situation into the next, because there are no other situations. Everything that we're perceiving is exactly what we have prayed for and asked for. It's basically everything that we believe. We did watch an episode number 2 of the new Black Mirror season that just was released this spring. It was so good, but it was ultimately taking us back to the power of the mind, and that Jesus is telling us what you believe you make true for you. In your perception, everything that you perceive, you believe is true. In the ultimate sense, none of it is true, because it's not spirit. It won't last forever. It's very temporary. But when you believe it's true, that's when the defense mechanisms come up if you seem to perceive something that seems to oppose what is believed in. It seems to be an opposing belief, but Jesus is teaching us, oh, there aren't people out there that have different beliefs than you are, because bodies don't have belief. The body is not the decision maker, the person is not the decision maker, it's the mind that makes all the decisions. And this movie, with our commentary, that's why we're saying with the commentary. It's not like you watch it on just by yourself, but with the commentary of Jesus, the commentary of Spirit, it can show you a lot more than the ego would ever want you to see, but that you really want to see. So, wow, we can say the main character is Nick.
Yes.
He's an architect.
Yes.
Nick Mickelson.
Yes.
And then we have Janine. He's married to Janine, at least in this time.
Yes, because we have three scenarios.
Three scenarios.
So the very first scenario, we have Nick, who is married to Janine. The second scenario, we have Nick, who is married to Alex. And the third scenario, we have single Nick.
Single Nick.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we can also see how they are in each scenario. There is a time shift. Like there's the first scenario, there's a time shift. Then there's a second scenario, there's a time shift, and then there's a third scenario. And all of it is an exploration of where is the joy, where is the happiness, where do I find the happiness in my heart. And today we had the lesson. For the ones that are following the calendar lesson, God's will for me is perfect happiness. And I share God's will of perfect happiness for me. And that is what we are all praying for today, to really experience that joy of the truth, of accepting who we are and accepting that everything that comes, like it is impossible that anything would come to me unbidden by myself or without my invitation. Even even in this world, it is I who rule my destiny. Everything that happens, I have asked for. Everything that happens, I wanted it to happen. And what does not happen, I didn't want it to happen. And Jesus says, this I must accept. I must accept. In order to wake up to the truth, in order to have joy in my heart, I must accept this. I must take full responsibility for my mind. Everything I see is what I want to see. The section of responsibility for sight. I am responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings I experience. And everything that happens, I've asked for and received as I have asked. So this movie is going to help us take full responsibility for our mind, for our state of mind, and come deep into our mind to choose the truth, to choose love, to choose joy. In the movie, we're going to have Nick, and he's going to believe that he has a choice in the world, that he has a choice of who to be with and try to find happiness in the form. So at the very beginning, we will see that he's in a relationship with Janine, but then he's going to say these words, something is not quite right, boom, and that sentence there is going to take him on a journey, and to him and to all of us, in a journey to find what is it that is not quite right, and where could I find that place in my mind where everything is right, the right-minded decision of seeing everything through the vision of Christ, through the perspective of the Holy Spirit, where there is no circumstance that is by chance, that I can see. Jesus even says, what could you not accept if every event, past, present, and yet to come, is gently planned for one who only wants your good, who only wants to love you, who only wants to experience joy. So the Holy Spirit wants us to come into this acceptance in our heart to experience how loved we are and how much joy there is in putting the purpose of truth out front. But the ego doesn't want us to see this. The ego is the one that says salvation is in form. Change the world and you be happy. And the Spirit is change your mind about the world and you be happy. And so that is what these time shifts are going to show us. Like there's going to be time shifts that seemingly changes the form. And as the form changes, is the happiness there? Is the happiness in the change of form, or is the happiness in a change of purpose for the world and for the images.
Yeah, it seems like if we really go back to our course, if we're going to go into this deep topic of time and undoing time, undoing the ego is really undoing the belief in linear time. Marina and I were talking about lesson 158 today. She mentioned it earlier, where Jesus says time is a trick, a sleight of hand where figures seem to come and go. So we could say that heaven is just pure spirit. The kingdom of heaven is pure spirit. There aren't any time segments, seconds and minutes and hours and days and weeks and months and years and decades. There aren't any bodies. This is a figment of imagination. This whole world is a figment of imagination, and the ego made up all relationships that involve bodies and involve people. So when we start to see with the lessons of the Course, like lesson number 1, nothing I see means anything, and he's going to ask us to move our eyes around the room and apply it to everything. I remember years ago, back in the 1990s, they would say, "What? I don't understand. What is he talking about?" I said, "Well, there's just no difference between a baby and a button." And I happened to be speaking to an audience of 4 students that were all mothers, and they took objection with my example. I said, "What do you mean, a baby and a button? What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, we have to start to see that the mind training Jesus is taking us to is that this whole projected world is projected from the ego to keep us from knowing who we are as spirit, to keep us from knowing that we're one mind. There's only one of us." That was in the commercial at the beginning. That we live in union, and the ego has made up a world where it's invented relationships. And people would say to me, "What do you mean invented?" And I say, "Well, even when someone says, 'Oh, I just got into a relationship this weekend.' Oh, well, what was that? Well, there's 2 of us that decided to be in a relationship, and you can see it's the construct. In this world, there's a difference, the ego says, between being single and married, or being partnered and being solo. The ego says there's differences between heterosexual, bisexual, there's different kind of configurations. There's different configurations of way of living. There's monogamy, there's polyamory, there's all kinds of things, open relationships, and there's categories. And what Jesus is teaching us is the very mechanism that set it up, that made these categories, and made all the rules that go with the categories, it's all false. So marriage, we could say, if you go into the word, it just means union, but union is in mind, only in content, not in form. Love is content, not form of any kind. So when we watch this movie, we're going to see the predicament of the human condition playing out. Because if you desire a relationship, and I've met many people who tell me that's my biggest desire, is I want a relationship, and I've met just as many people on my trips around the world who say, "Can you help me?" I say, "Help you with what?" "Can you help me get out of the relationship that I'm in?" Someone in, someone out. And yet in and out isn't going to solve it. We have to start to see, as Jesus says, that it's not that we're trying to escape from sin or bring an end to sin. We have to see that it's utterly ridiculous, that God did not create sin. God is a God of love, and God creates in pure spirit. And this cosmic world of time and space is the projection of the belief in error, ego, and that's what the missing the mark is. If the Aramaic for sin is just missing the mark, it's not necessary, it's good. Oh, I'm missing the mark. Then take another shot at getting a bullseye. Take another shot at that needle in a time stack, in that salvation that's in your mind among all the trillions and gazillions and cajillions, seemingly, it's just one, but it seems like cajillions of different forms, that God is is love, and God knows not form. That's a very short sentence from the Beyond All Idols section. God knows not form. If I want to know God, and God knows not form, it should be a clue in this riddle for me that I'm going to have to find that needle in a time stack that shows me that the form is irrelevant. The form is meaningless. I'm going to have to love the one I'm with, and I'm going to have to do it without exception, because if I've got preferences of love, then it's not love. That's just a bunch of exceptions. Preferences are exceptions. If I've got rules that are tied into the love, I'll love you if you follow these rules, then that's not love. A common thing in the New Age now, we have all the life coaches now, and they're all saying, you must have boundaries. And people have been asking me now for like going on 4 decades, but what about boundaries? And I say, well, boundaries are limitations, and that doesn't have anything to do with love either, because boundaries are limitations, and love doesn't have a limit. Love is agape, love doesn't have a limit. So when we watch this movie, we are undermining the ego's belief system in just the way things are. You know, who's with who? Who really cares? There's entire gossip magazines that just thrive for decades, making millions of dollars under one question: who's with who? You know, who wants, the National Enquirer, who wants to know? The ego is the only one that wants to know who's with who, because all you have to do is watch that movie, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, and you start to realize the reason they had so much fun making that movie, Jamie Lee Curtis and all of them, is they were laughing all the way through the movie, is because the multiverse is in the mind, and it's all just one. It just seems to be separate timelines. It seems to be separate personal, private personal identities that are trying to thrive in an illusory setup. That God created us as whole and complete, and the only way we can be truly, eternally happy is to be in the environment in which we were created, which is the kingdom of heaven. Now, if we want to bring it down to perception, Jesus does say to heal is to make happy. And he does say that, he says, you have made, meaning the ego has made special relationships, but they were not projected with the intent to make happy. This world was made in hatred. So all of the bodies, all of the personalities are little bits and pieces of the past that keep coming up into awareness. And as long as we keep acting as if they're real people instead of just past dots that we can let go, if we believe they're real people instead of past associations that we're meant to let go of completely, as long as we keep falling for that trick, the trick of time, then guilt will still be there. He says you are guilty in time, but sinless, innocent in eternity. That's a good one too. If any of you think you're going to pull off the innocent in time trick, you're not. You will never be an innocent person. The ego will always find a way to put guilt on you if you believe you're a person. If all it needs is a body, okay, you're going to play the innocent person game. Try this, and try this, and this, and this, and this, and see if you can survive believing you're an innocent person with all these things I'm going to throw at you. It's just a false interpretation, a false identity of believing in the body. That's all that is. So what's beautiful is we're going to see our main character, Nick, play this out in 3 ways. And even while Nick is playing this out, he's going to be getting messages from the Spirit. You know, Janine's going to say, love is a circle. It's forever. That's the Holy Spirit coming through Janine. He's going to get it coming through Alex. It's going to come through to his mind, but in the end, ultimately, we have to start to realize that if we're an idea in the mind of God, And let's just say for a moment, let's use the metaphor of people. Behind every person, behind every mask is just an idea from the mind of God. We need to relate to each other as ideas, not as bodies. Isn't it fun when you get together with a group of people? Maybe you go out to a Starbucks and everybody starts sharing their joy, and it's like a group of ideas just sharing their joy, and everyone is happy. To heal is to make happy. That's a glimpse of the real world. When you identify yourself as an idea and you totally give yourself away, you give your idea away all the time, then there's no loss. There's no bargaining, there's no expectations. All of the bargaining, expectations, fear of loss, regret of past, and fear of future, all are related to the body. Without the body identity, none of that makes any sense at all. All it is joy, all it is freedom. Like the song said, the eagle flies with the dove. The eagle is a symbol of freedom. The dove is a symbol of peace. Freedom and peace fly together because they fly as spirit, not as persons and as bodies. So when we're starting to realize the ego is the getting mechanism, and sometimes when you feel bad in a relationship, it's just an unconscious belief that you need to get something from them. If you were just an idea and you're just there to shine your light and extend your idea-ness, there's no problem. But as soon as you expect it, and this is where special relationships come in, because the ego makes up partnerships where there's a purpose for its partnership, and that's getting something. And if you're trying to get something from form, you're trying to get something from the past. Jesus is saying the past is gone. Don't try to hold on to it in any way. Don't try to get retribution for something that you feel is wrong. In this case, Nick, well, if you ask Nick, he's basically mostly happy with Janine, his wife. The only problem is he knows that Janine used to be married to Tommy. And that is driving him nuts. He is jealous about his wife's ex. And then we start to see that rich people in this movie, in this day and age, can go back in time, and Tommy has money, and his jealousy just blows up into a fear that Tommy is going to go back in the past, and it's going to change something. It's going to change something in the timeline. As if you can change the past. You have to understand, this is all based on the assumption as if you could go back. If you could go back for $1 million and change the past, you have to be able to smile and just tell the recruiter, I have no interest in changing the past. I've devoted my prayer and my heart to letting it go. But in this case, it seems like that's what it is in a linear time perspective. But when we try to change anything in form, when we try to change any person, any place, any situation, if you try to change the political landscape in the United States or Argentina or any place, that's trying to change the past. If you try to improve your personality self, what's called human development and self-help, that's trying to change the past. If you feel too cold or too warm in a house and you try to change something to change the temperature, that's trying to change the past. I remember I was riding with Kirsten one time in Florida, and she put it in her book, I Married a Mystic, but we were driving along somewhere in South Florida. It seemed to be a hot, humid day, and she was all there. The air conditioning was broken in the car, and she was sweating, and she looked at me and she said, we got to do something. There's no air conditioning. I can't handle this anymore. And I calmly said to her, you're having hot thoughts, aren't you? And she gave me a look like, sorry, buddy, there's going to be no relationship If I'm suffering in the heat and you're saying you're having hot thoughts, wrong words, wrong answer. But then we had to explore that. We did stop and we prayed, and then a cool breeze blew in the in the window, and she said, "Oh, that's much better." There was prayer, though. It was joining in mind that did it. It wasn't the breeze. It wasn't the form. So this is a really good movie. If you've ever had jealousy issues, great movie, Undoing Time. If you ever have had hatred for a partner, or protectionism issues, trying to protect a relationship, Jesus is saying, please give up these ridiculous concepts and realize that who you are is far, far beyond these considerations, these thoughts and beliefs that you're holding on to.
Yeah, and the issue of memory too, because if you think that who you are is the image, and you try to protect it, and you think that the memories are in time and space are worth protecting, then you lose yourself. And Jesus is saying, come back, use the power of your mind and the power of memory to remember who you are, but don't try to remember the past. The only value that the past has, like you said before, is that you pass it by, that you let it go completely. Let all the images be first cleaned out, purified, and then let go of, so that you can be in true joy in heaven.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You don't need a scrapbook to get into heaven. Mm-hmm. You can let go. Yeah. So I think we're about ready to start the movie.
Yes.
And here we go. This will be the first of our Let Go of Linear Time movies, and it's a good one. It's a classic. Yeah. So